I put in work, a lot of work. Got on my grind to make it work. I put in time to ease my mind. Now all the time I see dollar signs. I got the juice and barbecue. Yeah, I keep making moves, cause I know what to do, I put in work.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to another Network and Chill. I am Red and joined today with Rick, and we are honored to have a great guest. We will get into that guest very shortly. Just shout out to our sponsors, Amplify Louisville and Apt. We have something special today, so I'll kick it to Ricky. They kind of get into our guest today and kind of get into the conversation.
Excited to introduce to you Miss Julia Regan. She's the founder and CEO of RxLightning. RxLightning was founded in 2020. It is a technology platform that helps that connects doctors, patients, and pharmacies and drug manufacturers to reduce the time it takes for patients to start critical medication from multiple weeks to less than 2 days or even hours. The platform streamlines the process for doctors, patients, drug manufacturers, and specialty pharmacies, resulting in cost reduction and an increased revenue for specialty pharmacies and drug manufacturers, as well as a faster access to life-saving medications for patients. And I'm excited to introduce Julia Regan.
Woo! What's going on, Julia? How you doing today? Happy Friday. You there, Julia? There you go.
Sorry, guys, my mic muted, and I was trying to unmute it, and every time I did it, it didn't work. So, not sure if you heard that, but thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you guys today.
Yeah, it's been overdue. I've been tracking your growth and what you're doing with your company, but kind of get into the conversation today. I would love to hear a little bit about your background and kind of how that led up to you becoming the CEO of RxLightning.
Yeah. Well, my background's really interesting. I never thought as like a child or even like a young adult that I'd ever start a company. I'm actually really risk adverse, and I always thought entrepreneurs were a little bit crazy, and it wasn't necessarily my personality profile. But I started my career off in pharma sales, and I just loved healthcare and helping providers get medications and doing that whole education. And I was growing in my career thinking I'd move up in like sales management, and went in-house to do a marketing rotation. I won't tell you how long because they'll age me, but I went in-house and they basically said, hey, it was supposed to be a digital marketing rotation for 6 months. And when I went in, they were like, hey, there's these technology companies called like EHRs and e-prescribing, and they're starting to impact us. Could you spend your 6 months exploring how it would impact us? And I was like, yeah, what's an EHR? What's an e-prescribing company? Like, knew nothing about it. So like, yeah, I could try. And then I was like, okay, could you give me some guidance? And they're like, well, you've got your MBA, just go figure it out. And I was like, okay. So it was like this research challenge, I guess. And I fell in love with just the opportunity of technology in healthcare. So like healthcare technology is decades behind like fintech and other organizations. And, you know, I think there's a lot of reasons for it. It's because doctors used paper forever from a chart perspective because of security and compliance and HIPAA regulations and laws. So we're really in the infancy of it. And that was really very attractive to me, to be on the forefront of what could this do for what I was trying to achieve just in my day-to-day job. And that led into just the ability to think freely and to step back, which started innovating. Like I started innovating in the space. And I look back on my career and I kind of say, I guess I was always an entrepreneur. because I was in these big organizations kind of spearheading something that wasn't done before. And, I've been really lucky to create a lot of technology platforms, products with great organizations that I worked with in the past that have really made a difference. And as my career kind of went, I went from innovating to leading teams to managing people and P&Ls and really just tracking what that industry needs and RxLightning was kind of an idea and a concept and a solution that I really could have built at other companies, but I was fortunate along the way to build some great mentors that said, hey, Julia, you really have all the skill sets to do this. And I was like, I don't know about that. They're like, do it, take the leap of faith. We'll help you raise capital. And the worst thing that could happen is you fail and you fail quickly and you just go back and do it somewhere else or get another job. And I was like, okay, so I did that 3 years ago, right before COVID happened. And but then it's been a whirlwind. But now I look back and I realize that I've always been that entrepreneurial spirit. I just might be a little bit more conservative than some.
I love that idea of the entrepreneur, because I think that a lot of people, don't see themselves as entrepreneurial. But if you look at yourself in your organization, if you're always starting up an initiative or you got an idea to do something different, that's the same, type of, entrepreneurship. And it's just doing it from a different platform. I think that's something to speak to.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I fully agree. I think.
Go ahead, Chris.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I was just going to say.
No, I was going to say I just fully.
I think I'm on a delay.
It's all good. I think I hear you when you're talking about that piece of where you took that corporate to startup piece that Rick and I talk about often. And I think you kind of took that experience and kind of led you to the next piece and starting your own company. I think one thing that I hear a lot of times is those mentors guiding you to do it and making that leap of faith. How long was that stage between like that corporate experience to you actually taking a leap of faith and starting that company?
Well, it kind of was a natural progression because I worked for a large pharmaceutical company, which is worldwide known. And I was there for almost a decade. And then I went to a growth stage startup, but it wasn't really funded because it was profitable. And I essentially was at a startup within a startup in a way. And that's where I met really my main mentor. But from there, I went to a smaller startup and then I went to a smaller startup. And then I was like, okay, well, I've kind of naturally led from this really conservative financial employer-employee relationship perspective to getting a little bit more risky. And I was at the point in my career that luckily I had a lot of great relationships and partners that I was able to create a consulting relationship that then ultimately gave me the freedom to start the company while not necessarily having the extreme impact that would traditionally financially happen with just saying, I'm going to start a company and I have no clue where the company is going to have money. I'm going to make money. And, you have to live in the world that we're in, especially with the increase of everything. So I think it happened over a 6-year period.
Yeah, but having that, overall experience from the top down, like you said, a global pharmaceutical company, then work your way all the way down to a startup where you get this experience and you get to see that first before you take that, leap of faith. I think that's something to speak to, and building that network, with folks before you actually, take the jump. I think that's something that a lot of, founders don't think about, before they take that leap. And I think you can take that leap with a little bit more confidence when you've kind of been through that and have that journey and have that network.
Right. it's interesting. I always look back on it and like coming out of college, everybody's so green, right? Green, excited, passionate, like want to make this impact. And like the benefit of going into the large organization is I had all the formal education and training to create a career and know what it takes to be successful. I had structured goals and like accountability, and I saw like performance plans and all the stuff that like us entrepreneurs probably don't want to do, but it gives you the real structure and foundation to know like these are things that all make up a components of companies, especially as you grow, that I think is actually really invaluable. Like there's so many people I think that have been there, seen it, and have a idea or concept that could really create change in their industry, and they know it so well. It's taking it from that to then say, yeah, I'm going to go do this and then execute on it, that I think it becomes the struggle for a lot of people. Like I definitely didn't come into the decision really lightly and say, oh, I'm just going to go start this. It was a very methodical, thought out, okay, if I go do this, how's it going to impact the rest of my life? And like, how long could I really give the company? And I set like 9 months up to like for myself before I would have needed to start looking for a job. And luckily for myself and RxLightning, we were able to hit what the milestones we needed to hit for me to stay and keep growing here. 3 years later, I guess.
So cool. Well, before we get into the growth of RxLightning, really, and you're talking about all that experience, right? And really speaking to how you can actually be on the job and see insights and grow and still have some of that entrepreneurship. What were some of the pain points that you saw within your industry that led you to start RxLightning? And really, how did you really do the research to say, this is something I want to pursue?
Yeah. So it was a natural evolution of discovering the pain points for me. So we really focus on specialty medications, and my prior roles, I was always focused around workflow automation and bringing transparency in through the prescription process in general. So being in that space, I was exposed to the market data of what was happening with specialties. So I was able to see this trend, and there's like standard bodies and there's a lot of things in our healthcare organization that are created that you could look at patterns that have evolved over other types of products that I built and see the natural progression of, hey, specialty meds have a problem. Hey, there needs to be some solution, and people are starting to talk about it. Unfortunately, with a lot of the experience I had from a professional standpoint combined with a personal experience, I was able to really step back and say, well, this is the piece that we could start innovating on and tackle it. And this is how we do that. And I look back and like the original business plan I wrote, like I could probably throw all the financials out because anytime you're doing it, it's like you have no clue. Like you don't know what your pricing model is. You don't know how many customers are going to come on when. Like you can make all those assumptions in the world, but like that is like probably junk. But other than that, like the actual strategy and the content and the vision of where we were going to go, if I pull it up today, 3 years later, like it has evolved and expanded and grown from an opportunity, but you would still very much see the original vision and what we're doing on a day-to-day basis in that plan. So for me, I was really fortunate. We really haven't had to pivot. We've just evolved, which I think allows us to execute more than have to figure out, just because of that long-standing history that was really relevant to what we're trying to do and accomplish.
That's awesome. So building on that, can you tell us about the inception of RxLightning and the problem that RxLightning is solving? I think that from a specialty medicine standpoint, for me, I see like, okay, Express Scripts, we got Express Scripts, that's going fast. Like what what do we need, and what was the problem that you all are solving there?
Yeah. So when you look at specialty meds, like first, that's probably really not something that everybody could relate to necessarily. So the easiest way to explain it is these are really high cost medications. They're complex there's a lot of rules and regulations imposed because of their cost, or it could be how they're taken. So you can't just pick them up at the CVS or the Walgreens or the Kroger or whatever store your pharmacy's at. Traditionally, you've got to get it through a specialty pharmacy or go to your doctor and have them buy it and then bill it is what they call it. And what people don't realize is they're so expensive. So it actually represents over 50% of the drug spend in the US, even though it's a small population of patients. The easiest to relate to would be oncology. I think everybody, unfortunately, has an experience where they can relate to that. So if you put that in the perspective of the patient and their diagnosis and knowing that it could be a life-threatening disease that you want to treat, and then you say, okay, it's really high cost and there's all these processes to even get started. What's created is delays. So today, prior to RxLightning, everything that's traditionally done to get that patient on therapy is done through paper, phone calls, faxes. Doctors are actually using Excel or paper to keep track of different steps in the process. It's very archaic when you think about like, oh, I could go to the bank and do all this stuff, or I could order a pizza and know exactly where my pizza is based upon the delivery driver. Like that doesn't exist in this world. So what it does is you get that diagnosis and then you have to wait. And we're not talking about days. We're talking about sometimes weeks or months, like even to complete a form, it could take 2 weeks. So RxLightning has really looked across those processes and said, we're going to create a digital experience that has all of the processes across all of the stakeholders and really allow doctors, patients, and other people that work on behalf of that patient to digitally do this and be informed by it. So we don't like to use Pizza Tracker because of the seriousness that we're talking about, but essentially we want to bring to patients the ability for them to know exactly what is going on at every step of the way to get on treatment. So, and it's a huge problem. They expect that the med spend will be about $1 trillion in the next 3 to 5 years, which is just unfathomable because it's at like $500 million right now. So it's just going to continue to grow and get more complex for doctors and patients and everyone else involved.
Yeah, I feel like that was like the perfect, setup for technology to come in and disrupt a industry. I mean, and further like the disconnect between technology, folks and like doctors, doing these processes. Like there's a big disconnect there. Like they're on almost opposite ends of the spectrum. These guys are like robots thinking, and these guys are thinking about biology. So those skill sets often don't really cross, especially, not in the workplace. So I think like finding like those opportunities are keys to finding, spaces that you're ready to disrupt and places that technology can really, disrupt.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's a lot of areas in healthcare that are set up like that just because we're really in the infancy of digital experiences in healthcare. It's maybe the last like 20, 30 years that they've really, it started. So
I would definitely agree. I've been in healthcare for 15 years, Julia, and it just amazes me the lack of innovation. And I really realized during the pandemic, I've probably seen more innovation in healthcare in the last 3 years and probably the last 30 or so. I'm curious, as you're bringing an innovative, disruptive technology that really improves patient outcomes and patient care, how were those early conversations to get people to adopt your technology and utilize that? And I'm kind of curious, are there any even examples you may have already of how that really increased a patient outcome?
Yeah, I think some of the patient outcome aspect of the technology is hard to pinpoint because sometimes, unfortunately, with the patients that we're talking about, the outcome is still negative just because of the severity of the disease state. I think for us, every minute matters when a patient is at that stage where they need treatment, and they're not just fatal illnesses; they're chronic, life-threatening diseases, or they're progressive in nature that you want the medicines to stop it from progressing. So a lot of ours is more just, we know definitively by accelerating time, it's creating better quality of living for these patients. It's extending life. In some situations, if you treat something early enough, it could save a patient's life. I think it's hard to be able to exactly pinpoint that.
Yep.
But we're seeing, like, depending on what we're talking about. So like paper forms, COVID, patient and doctor are not always in the same location. So snail mail is used. And we created a very HIPAA compliant way for providers to sign everything and then digitally go out to the patient through different channels to gather the patient's signature. And snail mail data shows that at a good rate, you're at like 15 days because you got to mail it there and then receive it back. And most of the time it's upwards of 30 or 40 days. Our system, just with that one aspect, gets the paperwork completed in 50% of the time in less than 30 minutes from the time the doctor completes it. And the majority of them are, I think it's like 80% are done within the first 24 hours. So there are things like that within our journey that are just so drastically significant that we've seen. We had an oncology medication that went through our system. Prior to us, it would have been a couple weeks to get shipment confirmation. And I have a video testimonial of a woman who was speaking, and she said the first time she used RxLightning, the patient called her and said, "Hey, the pharmacy called me and told me that the medication's shipped." And she's like, "Huh? What do you mean?" Like she did not understand that because she just submitted the paperwork to the doctor that day. So the fact that it's such drastic differences, people use it and fall in love with it because we're not only easing the paperwork. People don't like to do paperwork, right? So we're easing the paperwork aspect, and with COVID and provider burnout, that's very important for mental health. But we're also helping improve that for the patients, that there's this like genuine joy and love for RxLightning in providers' offices because of the ability for us to empower the staff to really help care for the patients better. So
I call that patient satisfaction. And I think that's even that's a part of the outcome. And so that's a piece I was really looking into, because I think those things are at times could be overlooked in healthcare. Like these little small things, like your example, just getting delivered with your pizza, right? Like those things we look at on a daily basis and live by. So imagine something that's really important to us, like medications, and understanding when that's going to be delivered. I think those are things that can be overlooked, but to me are really quality patient care and patient outcomes, and the fact of satisfaction and understanding when you have something really important to you, when it's going to be delivered to you. So I think that's a really cool outcome. And kind of thinking through that a little bit as well. Have you, those initial conversations with those offices, was there pushback? What was that sales cycle out early on for you to kind of get them to adopt your technology?
Oh yeah. It's funny. I think we still, when we talk to providers, they like the staff and stuff, they don't believe it. Just because there's a lot of technology organizations that have tried to create something and that it just didn't work. I was speaking at a conference, and this is somewhere on my social media, and there's this woman she's just hysterical. Like I want to speak with her all the time. And she works for one of the, maybe the largest like allergy immunology group in the country. And she literally said that when we told her about it, she was like, I don't believe it, but I'm going to try it because I'm so desperate for help, because she was working crazy hours. Like, she had mental health issues around like her hair falling out because of the stress, because it's like she's at the barrier to doing everything to get her patients on these meds that they need. So she's like, I'll try it because I need something, like anything could potentially be better. And when she was speaking with me, she literally said, if RxLightning told me that they could create a umbrella that shoots fireworks during the rain, I would believe them. And I'm like, that's really hysterical, because I don't think that's probably even probable. But so it's always met like, it's very, are you sure? But it's very much that they want to try it because they're so bogged down with what these paper processes are, or these phone calls are, that they're able to do it. So now for us, it's all about like trying to be able to communicate and talk with more organizations. But we've been very fortunate that some large provider groups have reached out to us, and getting through the commitment to use the platform is actually really quick. Getting through some of the contracting is, a little bit more fun to navigate.
So speaking of that, so being my 2020 Vogt Award cohort compadre, talk about the growth of RxLightning from inception of 2020 to where you are now, and fundraising, and how that all came about and worked out as you all grew so fast.
Yeah. So I actually did a lot of reflection on this over the holidays, going into coming up to our third birthday. So our anniversary from incorporation date is the 20th of this month. So it's approaching. 2020, we were really focused on building the product and then raising capital. There's only so much you could bootstrap when there's you and your co-founder, and my co-founder, Brad Allen, is just technically brilliant. What he's built and his team has built now is just such a beautiful piece of technology that allows me to communicate to all the different stakeholders the value, and he does not probably get enough recognition for that. So 2020 was really just him and I, and I would say Q3, Q4 is when I raised our initial capital. We started hiring our initial employees. I think we had maybe 6 employees at the end of the year that all came on from like October to December. And then we launched the product in 21. So we're really we call it 2 years old just from product launch. And we just have always been really fortunate to be growing. So we doubled our staff. Actually, well, maybe we tripled our staff in 2020, and then we've doubled our staff in 22. We're in 23 now. So, and I think for us, we really hit product market fit early on, just because we were competing against paper. Like, even when other parties are out there doing like parts of what we do or in a similar way, there's so much of the market that's still paper. So the opportunity is extremely large. And with COVID, I think that helped accelerate stuff, because it actually made those paper processes more difficult, because people and patients weren't engaging, providers and patients. And then you also had your staff that were now decentralized from the doctors. So even getting doctor signatures became more challenging when you have paper to do that and coordinate it. So I think there was a lot of things that happened naturally kind of in our favor that has allowed some of the growth. I think that I'm really fortunate that we have amazing investors that have seen our vision, that have helped with the guidance. We have several strategic investors that help from a business partnership perspective to really not just help us from a capital perspective, but help us with a strategy and a business partnership perspective. And then my team, I've got so many amazing team members that are phenomenal at what they do on a day-to-day basis that allows RxLightning to continue to grow. And we're just really looking forward to 23, and we believe we're going to end up doubling in the next 60 days. And again, and it's a lot of fabulous things. We're helping a lot of patients and making a lot of impact. It's also extremely stressful.
Yeah. I was going to get at that, or that pace of growth from the customer side, but also like hiring and training and really becoming from like, a CEO of a company to like a leader of a company, right? And going from the action to all those other things that being a great leader and having a big team comes with. What were some of those challenges during that time of growth that you kind of encountered? And maybe how did you handle some of that strategically?
Oh, there's so many challenges, I think. For me, I'm a first-time founder, so I'm going to naturally make mistakes because I've just not done it before. I think that the way I've tried to approach the business and the growth is I've surrounded myself with amazing people, and that's from my board to my advisors to investors and team members that luckily I don't need to have all the answers, but I have people that I could go to help provide me counsel and guidance to help me make the best decision as a leader. I think one of the things that I've learned most is like my team is larger than the largest team I've managed to date. So my company is larger than what I've done. And I think for me, like culture is really important, and allowing the people around you to step up and own and become leaders and delegate and move out of the details and be more out of the business to actually move the business forward has been a lot that I kind of seek counsel on, like what's the best way to do it and how do you move from always being in the details to being out of the details in a comfortable way, not where I want to micromanage anyone or not know that it's not that I don't trust them, but it's just like RxLightning's my third baby. So it's like, how do you balance it and create the culture where your team is really the ones driving you forward? And I think that mine's like books and people, and just if I don't know something, saying like, hey, I don't know this, could you help me with it? Like, what are your thoughts on it? And getting different opinions and then coming to a decision. And fortunately, I don't think I've done anything that's been too detrimental with decisions or anything, but I make mistakes, and it's, I think, how you respond to them and navigate through them that are beneficial for me. But
No, I love that. I mean, I think that piece of learning as you go is so important. I mean, I think you also have the confidence to be willing to make mistakes. I think, like you said, and you are a first-time founder, and I think a lot of times first-time founders are almost intimidated of growth, right? The growth can be a negative in a sense. So being able to take on that growth and hire efficiently, learn as you go, surround yourself with great people, great advisors. This is so critical. I just love hearing that, because I think many aspiring entrepreneurs, like those are kind of things that the bad side of things we don't talk about enough. And so like embracing those small failures in order to grow larger. And I think, I've been having this conversation with a lot of entrepreneurs recently who have been, going from your 10, having a team of 10 to a team of 20 to 30 to 40. And that transition of getting out the details and delegating and letting go at times could be so tough, because you just, like you said, that is your third baby, that is your first baby, and you want to hold on to it. So getting out of the details can be challenging. I think you probably are still working on that, because I think we all want to hold on to being in the inside, because you were there when it all started. But it really it's cool to hear you kind of talk about that little bit of experience. I'm kind of curious as we get ready to kind of go to a fire round with you and close out. What are maybe one piece of advice you would give to someone who's thinking of making that leap as an entrepreneur and getting started? What would you tell them?
Do it. If you could do it somewhere else, why wouldn't you do it on your own? Like that's kind of what happened with me. That helped me. Like I've successfully done this other places. Well, I believe in myself. Like I think a lot of hesitation comes to self-doubts. And I think that any entrepreneur, regardless of how successful that is, because I think success is measured societally very different than what an entrepreneur should measure success on. But anybody that has gone through it, whether it's extremely successful or somebody would call it a failure, I think that the success is starting it. Like you're successful when you make the leap to go forward and plan this. And like the self-doubt and all of that comes there. Everybody has it. I think it's how you respond to it, how you navigate it, how you create an environment that's okay. Like I remember raising my first round of capital. I literally had no clue. Like somebody had to spend like probably an hour with me explaining what like a discount was and what a cap was. Like literally had no clue. Now I'm explaining that to other people. So that's okay. Like you don't have to have all the answers. I think you just have to have the desire and the confidence to be graceful with yourself and then, go for it. So I'd tell people to go for it. What's the worst thing that happens? You could go back to what you were doing before if something happens where you can't continue for whatever reason. So.
Yeah, definitely. Just take the leap. Just make it happen. And with that being said, what makes you excited about building your company here in Louisville? And what has been your experience building a company here in Louisville and raising capital here in Louisville?
Well, Louisville's great. I think that, the Midwest traditionally is like, oh, could it be done? Like, yeah, it could be done. Like, first of all, the cost of living here is so much cheaper than the coast, and capital goes further. There is amazing talent everywhere, not just on the coast. So I've been really fortunate. We're in a hybrid kind of model. We've got great talent locally, and we've got great talent across multiple different states. We try to have a balance of the Louisville footprint and hiring the best talent for what we need at the time and what's available. Raising capital is interesting. I think for me, like I was in the thick of COVID, so I raised capital from Zoom. I have not raised capital from any investors to date that I met before they invested in the company, other than like some of my early angel investors, but like all my institutional investment, we did everything on Zoom. I think that might be inaccurate soon here, but so there's opportunities. I think that COVID has created a positive change where investors are okay investing outside of the coast and also investing outside of what their traditional region would have been. So we do have Louisville Capital. One of our strategics is actually local, that a local company. And for us, it's been great. But what I would tell people is don't be limited by any location that you live in, even if you're in the coast. Don't be limited by that. And there's capital out there. The environment and the market's definitely tougher, and you need to look to be a little bit more capital efficient now and have smart growth. But you could raise it wherever you kind of want.
I love it. I fully agree. I think, Rick and I always telling founders to network, and don't limit yourselves to just a location. You can be anywhere. You can make connections anywhere. I think, like you said, COVID really changed that really you can widen your network pretty quickly. You can meet with investors pretty quickly via Zoom, 15, 20 minutes that maybe those type of investors will not respond before. And I think it's a great way to build connections in other cities and states and really have options at the end of the day, right? Because I think, like you said, capital is one thing, but you want like strategic capital. You want capital that can actually help you grow and scale outside of just the money. And I think those kind of relationships go deeper and allow you to grow your company at a faster, quicker pace. So I love to hear that.
Yeah. Investor relations are extremely important. I think one of the advices that I would give early founders is like, not all capital is equal. And, there are different types of capital. And when you're raising, really be cognizant around like how much of the company you're selling and what the capital that's coming in can help and can do. Like there's a balance. Early on, you need the capital, but as you grow, you need capital plus the other stuff, because that plus actually could bring business relationships and networks that you have no clue to. And we've been fortunate, like our investors, when you raise more money and do more rounds, it almost becomes easier because you've got now your investor networks so it's like, I don't have to cold call an investor anymore. They're either coming to us or my investors are making very warm introductions for us, which is very different than when you go to your initial round and it's like, you're out there doing the pitch competitions and you're out there like banging on all the doors and getting a million, well, no's still happen, right? But you're getting the million no's, like they don't even want to talk to you type of thing. So those who you bring on board actually will help, I think, accelerate companies more than people think. And I think that's some of our successes. We were really fortunate early on with our investors, and luckily we've never had to raise capital when we've really needed it other than that first time. And that is very comforting for me because it's one less thing I need to worry about when I have a million other things that are more important to worry about.
Well said. I think I love that a lot. I think it's so important and critical. Well, as we close out and give you some time back, Ricky and I are going to bounce back and forth for 5 quick questions, a little fire round. Let me know if you're ready to go.
Yeah, hopefully I get these questions right.
It's no right or wrong. It's really your favorite. So first question is, what is your favorite book recommendation and maybe why?
Today it's Crucial Communication and Crucial Accountability. It's a series here that I'm on the Crucial Communication accountability one. It is just, there are a lot of tough conversations personally and professionally that founders have to go through. And it's like a blueprint, like all the things that I was doing wrong in my communication, like it explains the why and stuff. And I think one of the key learnings from the Crucial Communication book was go into every conversation with a plan, focusing on the objective that you want out of that conversation. Because like, look, I could light somebody up to try to get them to do something, but is it going to achieve, like it might make me feel good, but is it going to achieve the outcome that I want? Or I could stay more rational around like cause effect or accountability or whatever it is. And like, for me, like I'm a pretty emotional, a passionate person, so I could be hot-headed. I could also give people the silent treatment. So like some of those things, like the book just is really good, like setting up like why you respond certain ways in situations and what better approaches are. And like, I literally refer to it on a pretty consistent basis, like not even just professionally, but there's some personal and like relationship advice in it too. So it's phenomenal. I would highly recommend it to everybody, like sooner than later.
I love that. It's just like when you start a startup, it's like thinking about the outcome that you want before you start the business is like the key. But like, okay, I'm going to this meeting with the same, mindset or whatever. It's just being intentional about, the outcomes that you want. I love that. Next question. So what is the best piece of advice you've been given while running your startup?
Oh, that's a really tough question. To trust myself, I think that's I think that I had imposter syndrome for a while. I probably still feel that. And I've been told, trust myself, trust the process, trust the people kind of around you, and trust your decisions. And I think that it's really easy as a founder to second guess everything. But because like you're the person that all the decisions fall on. Like it's on your shoulders, regardless of other decisions throughout it. The final decision is yours. And trusting myself was good. I probably try to tell myself that more from the person who told me it. But trust yourself.
Yeah. Trust is great. I think self-doubt always has a tendency to creep in on all of us. So I think that's a reminder, and that self-talk is so important. So I like that a lot. All right. A quick fun one. If you had unlimited money, what would be your ideal getaway?
So I think I want to go, like, my bucket list is like Fiji and Tahiti. And my COO actually just went, he went there during his honeymoon, and the pictures like have made me jealous. But that is definitely on my bucket list, to just like go and not have like a return date on it. And all those islands down there, not just Fiji, Tahiti, but like that location, and just see what looks insanely beautiful. And I don't think pictures could probably describe, would be like, just go get away. I was joking with my husband. Hopefully we get the opportunity to go there before we get old. Just the other day, actually.
That sounds awesome. That's definitely on our bucket list also. But all right, our next question. This is one of my favorite questions. So, what two people would you pair to birth the ultimate entrepreneur?
Oh, I don't know. That is so like, okay, so like Elon Musk, we could go as the guy, and then Oprah.
Oprah. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. We got an Oprah lots of the times. Everybody loves Oprah, so I was like, that's a great.
She's done some pretty incredible things as a female in her career. There's probably a lot of women I could think of, but those would be the.
Well, I like the combination.
Do you imagine
Elon,
those two
Oprah
together too?
Yeah, because like Elon, Oprah could do the speaking for Elon.
That's hilarious.
Not a realistic partnership.
Hey, we're not being realistic right now. We're just doing crazy ideas. So, All right, last one, and we'll close it out here. Is really like just a fun one. I mean, there's no right answer to this, but like, what is the secret to making unicorns?
God, I don't know. When you figure it out, can you let me know?
I know.
Unicorn sauce.
Yeah. I don't know. Somebody's got to figure that out. Exactly. It's interesting when you look at unicorn, like a lot of the different unicorns, there's not like a perfect playbook for how they all happen. They're all different. Like, so that's a good one. Did anyone ever give you an answer that you were like, oh yeah, it sounds good?
I'll keep asking. I find out secret sauce. I share it over to you and many others as well. So no, we definitely appreciate your time today and your insights and hearing about the growth and scale of your company. We're excited to hear what's coming next, and we'll definitely be in contact and keep in touch with you.
Yeah, well, Chris, Ricky, thank you for having me today. It's always good to see both of you and have the opportunity to catch up.
All right. Well, you take care, and we'll talk to you all later.
Thanks,
Peace.
Julia.
I enjoy having kind of
more diverse and it becoming
Grateful to be kind of at the cusp.
And I had like this 65-year-old
Make it work. I put in time.